Hi, I'm Steven and I invented the Unibrau System. Today we're going to talk about our new controller, the SV1, and how it works with the SV240. So we've released the SV1 recently and we've done a video on how to program this controller, and I wanted to show how it fits into our current ecosystem of controllers. Now, we've done away with the ETC and the Easy Boil controllers, and we have kept the SV240 in the lineup as it works rather effectively with the SV1 controller. Now, the SV1 is a 120 volt controller. The SV240 is 240 volts. The SV240 controller operates in tandem with the SV1. Now, we've simplified the offering and we've removed the ETC and the Easy Boil controllers because we really wanted to stick with our ethos of modularity. So if you've got the SV1 controller and you're brewing in 120 volts, you can easily upgrade to 240 volts by simply purchasing the control box here, the SV240. Now, as well, if you want to upgrade from the Unibrau System to the Unibrau Pro, you could just buy the SV240 and you'd be able to brew with the Pro setup, and you're able to control fermentation control. Now, the way that they work together is this SV1, what it is it's a PID controller, but what's unique about it is you can also use it in switching mode. Now, in switching mode, it simply mechanically turns the power on and off. And I'm going to get into detail about how to use it in switching mode a little bit later in the video. But for now, what I can tell you is that when you use it with the SV240 controller, you now have a little bit more flexibility with the output. Now, when you're brewing with 240 volts, you're definitely using a lot more power. So at 120 volts, you're brewing with 1650 watts using one of our elements. And at 240 volts, you're going to be brewing at 5,500 watts. So that's more than 3 times the power. Now, because you're brewing with so much more power, temperature overshoot is much more likely to occur if you're not careful. Now, with our old controllers, the Easy Boils, they worked really quite nicely because you could program them so that they would never overshoot the temperature. And these controllers are just a little more manual. Now, the reason that we went with a more manual controller interface is because, quite frankly, they're easier to use. They're easier to program, they're easier to use, and a lot of people, I think, like the idea of having timing features and the idea of step mashing. But at the end of the day, I find, if it's going to take me 5 to 10 minutes, or I have to read a user manual to figure out how to do these things, I get frustrated rather quickly. And everybody has a smartphone these days as well. So I just think that, with timing features and step mashing, hey Siri, set a timer for 15 minutes, and I manually move it into my mash out phase of mashing. So, I mean, I really just don't want to think too deeply about how I need to program anything for that matter. I just want to use it and I want to brew. So the SV1 has an output, for heating, and in order for it to work with the SV240, we simply take the power plug, and we have a plug on a cord, and it plugs into the SV240. So on the receptacle side of the SV240, we plug this into the heat side of the SV1. Now, what's happening is the SV1 is sending a signal out to the SV240 when there's a call for heat. And simply the SV240, all it is it's like a volume knob on a stereo. Because you're controlling 5,500 watts, you can turn it up to 100. Is that 100 there? You can turn it up to 100, or you can turn it down, all the way to 0. And all that's doing is managing the output of the controller. So when I'm mashing, and I want to mash, let's say, at 152 degrees, I simply put it at 100 as I'm raising the temperature, and then I turn it down maybe to somewhere around 40 or 35 when I'm mashing. And that way I prevent any temperature overshoot. If I want to go into a boil, all I do is I move the output to the pump output and turn the pump on. And now we have continuous power to this controller. Turn it up to 100 as I'm trying to raise it to boil temperature. And as I'm getting, now you can hear the kettle already. You can hear the element is at 100% of output. And when I get to boil, all I do is as I'm approaching boil, I just start turning down the rheostat so that I have the boil that I want. It's very simple. It doesn't have boil overshoot protection. It doesn't have any of these fancy features, but it's reliable, it's simple, it works, it doesn't fail, it doesn't disconnect from Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. And I really think that with this system, you can purchase any one of our products and you haven't bought something that potentially can be redundant in the future. They really work well together. 120 volt brewing. If you want to control your fermenter, you can use the SV1. You can turn that into cooling mode and use the SV1 to do that as well. If you want to know more information about the SV1, check the link below. We've got another video that explains how to program it. So let me explain how to use the SV1 with the SV240. First of all, you need to take it out of PID mode, which is the factory default of the SV1. To do that, press the set button until you see IP at the top. Press it again. Now that looks like an OP. Press the AM button and it shows control PID. Now, if you hit the down arrow, it'll move to control on off. Press set again until you exit and you return to the main screen showing the temperatures. It's very simple. So now that we have it in the on-off mode, it's going to work in harmony with the SV240. And that's how we control it. One final thing that I want to say is the SV240 can also be used to still with. So we haven't released a still as of yet, but it's being just a rheostat controller, which you can control the percentage of output. You can effectively control a still that way. Now, I hope you found this video useful. If you like what you see, please like it, share it, and subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next video. Have a nice day.